I'm the only one? No way. Apologize or office? I am.
Guys, I think, are we ready to start recording in the back?
Yes.
All right, we're going to go ahead and then get started, and we'll let Mr. Hart join when he gets here. Hopefully everything's okay. So I'm going to call to order the Board of Aldermen regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, May 4th, and we appreciate everybody attending today who had time to join us. I'm going to call to order the meeting. We're going to ask everybody in attendance to please set their cell phones to silent or vibrate. The board does offer 2 public opportunities to speak during the meeting. Comments should be limited to no more than 3 minutes and relate to issues upon which the Board of Aldermen have control. Following the board's adopted rules of procedure, comments and responses, if any, shall be reserved for the open forum comment period on the agenda. We have the invocation next, which is Alderman Grant.
Yes, ma'am. Please bow your heads. Bless this town and may it remain a beautiful and friendly place to live. We pray that this board makes fair and informed decisions tonight. We also pray that our police officers, firefighters, and members of our armed services here and around the world remain safe as they risk so much for our security. We also pray that our town is spared the ravages of hurricanes and other natural disasters, excuse me, and that everyone associated with the town remains safe and secure. If we could bow our head for a moment of silence for all the people engaged in the war in Ukraine. Thank you. Amen.
The pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No.
Joanne, did you want to note that there is a quorum present for the meeting? Because we're missing one.
Mr. Eads, do I need to note that since Alderman Hart is out, that we do still have a quorum to hold the meeting? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the manager's report, so we will give Alice a minute. I know. Oh, okay, sorry about that, guys.
The first item I have is an update on the 5-phase project. ST Wooten completed the first phase of this project. To date, they have placed approximately 120,000 cubic yards of sand in the project area, which has exceeded the expectation of 100,000 cubic yards. Fran is working to obtain final volumes from the surveys completed last Friday. Operations, though, have officially paused at this point and will resume in November following turtle season. The Cat B Dune Restoration Project, after we received the technical correction to remove the 50% match for the $1.5 million in state funding, it took a considerable amount of time and follow-ups to receive the fully executed contract from the state. I'm happy to report that we did, in fact, receive the full $1.5 million from the state on April 21st and received the permit extension on April 26th. Work officially resumed on this past Monday, May 2nd, and we will continue through Friday. We will know on Thursday. Fran will report back later this week if the project will be completed this time or if we will need to resume on Monday and work for Tuesday of next week. So if we do need to do that, I'll be certain to post that information that the project will resume next week for a couple days if need be. The Jenkins access has been closed this week while the contractor's been working. If additional work is required beyond Friday, the intent is to open the access back up for the weekend and then, of course, close again on Monday for the duration of their operations. The work started on the north end of the project area, North Marina Way, and worked back to the Jenkins Way beach access. And from there, the work plan dictates that the work from the south end of the project near the pier be completed and work back again to Jenkins Way beach access. The County Dune project, I communicated to the county manager that we were getting close to completing the Dune project at Beach Access 4, which is the county access, and provided them a plan showing the Hatteras ramp that is to be reinstalled there in the same location. We anticipate placing approximately 2,200 cubic yards of sand. The contractor will be working from the landward side of the dune as much as possible, as dictated by the state. We will be coordinating the removal of the lattice panels once I hear back from the county, and I indicated I'll be scheduling the meeting on site with anyone interested from their staff and us to coordinate it. We have an extension right now in place until May 20th to complete that work. Sea oats planting. Coastal Transplants began mobilizing this week in preparation for sea oat planting to begin next week. Our public works supervisor delivered the water meter from Onwassa to Steve Mercer on this week. So they have that, it's in their possession, and they will be responsible for that from here on. Beach access signage, staff finalized the list for beach access numbers that we've been discussing. We ordered 57 signs, 9x12 size, that will be installed on the public beach accesses on the beach side only. This will be considered as phase 1. If the board would like to continue and put them on the landward side, we can certainly do that at a later point in time. They will be blue and white that read beach access and then the corresponding number. As soon as the signs arrive, staff will install them on the beach. The 22-23 budget, our budget workshops were held March 30th and April 13th. The board has been told to establish the next workshop along with the public hearing, which is to be determined at this point. We're thinking May 18th or 19th. As soon as we receive everyone's responses, Danielle will announce what date has been selected that works for everybody. RCCP, Resilient Coastal Communities Program. As you know, we've now completed Phase 1 community engagement and risk vulnerability assessment and Phase 2 planning, project selection, and prioritization. Kleinfelder is closing out the portfolio list and deliverables. After several months of meeting and public open houses, the 3 towns are in agreement at this point to apply for Phase 3 engineering and design services grant application for sections of roadside stormwater infiltration systems. The anticipated request is $135,000. Grant application is due June 3rd, which we will be making submission on. I've provided a list of all potential island-wide projects, and the last page on that's included in my report shows a ranking of the projects based on open house results, and this was with public input. And you can see that the number 1 problem was stormwater that they wanted to focus on, and 2, of course, was beach nourishment and dune restoration projects. So this project, the intent is to go in as a joint applicant with the other 2 communities that would put us in a better position to get more funding and be looked upon more favorable. So if you have any questions as you go through that list of projects between now and the end of the month, let me know. Feel free to ask any questions. Richard Peters Park, our fire department and public works staff completed an extensive cleanup of the park last week. 13 dump truck loads of debris and dead trees were hauled out of the park that were in the natural areas compromising the live oak trees and the canopies throughout the park. We have an arborist who's assessing the trees right now to determine what measures should be taken to ensure their survival. We planted 3 magnolia trees for Arbor Day, and I met with the landscaper to reestablish the maintained areas. So you'll see more improvements over the next few weeks. The lawn's going to be treated next week, and then the landscaper will be starting and closing out the more of the replanting of the bushes and the pine straw installation the week after. I just wanted to say thank you to the fire department staff, public works, who put a lot of work into this initiative. It was a lot of work. I certainly appreciate it, and all staff across the departments have been very active throughout this month in participating in different events. For Earth Day, we've planted trees and flowers here throughout the grounds of Town Hall that you could see, as well as the magnolia trees planted at Arbor Day, and we participated in the beach sweep that we partnered with Onslow County Tourism and the Longboard Association. So a lot of time and effort's been put in, and I just want to say thank you for all your work and dedication to the residents and the community. Everyone greatly appreciates what y'all do.
I would like to just add one thing to that last item, which was when we did the beach sweep, it was very impressive to see how little we all cleaned up. There really was not, I mean, there were some cigarette butts we cleaned up, but I think Alderman Swantek got some flip-flops, but other than that, they're really, the buckets and the trash bags were not full, which was nice and very much appreciated when our visitors come and take with them what they bring. I did have just 2 questions, Alice, and then I'll open it up and see if the board has any questions as well. We've had some discussions, I know you're following up with UNWASA regarding the pump station that's still being planned here, so we don't have dates for any of that yet. But you were also following up with them to see if we could improve upon our pressure on our water hydrants as well, right? So we're just waiting for that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for an official response back from the director. I talked to him this week, and it's my understanding there was talk in the past about a water tower, so he's going to be giving me a response back probably within the next week. They'll be able to share with the board. But that option was looked at one point, and that's why they're proposing the booster pump. But I'll have all of those deliverables later this week to be able to share with what they looked at and why they're recommending what they're recommending.
Okay, that's perfect. And yeah, and I know that they have gone back to their engineer, so they'll come back to us with, but I appreciate you reaching out to them and explaining that issue had come up. And then the other question I had was, it looks to me as I do get to walk the beach that some of the repairs for our public beach accesses have been completed. Do we know if we're done and we're in good shape for all the residents or visitors?
We are, I know Scott has been, that's been on one of the things, many on the top of his list was making sure all the crossovers are safe.
Okay.
So it'll be ongoing throughout the season though, to be honest with you, because
Okay.
things happen
I agree.
daily, so.
Thank
But
you.
it's definitely on his list to monitor.
Okay, and then I'm going to go around and see, Ms. Pluddle, do you have any questions?
No, thank you so much.
Mr. Benson?
I do have just maybe a comment. You said it might be necessary to open the Jenkins parking lot over the weekend if the contractor's not finished. And my question or point is, we're not gonna ask the contractor to demobilize there and then remobilize. Their equipment would be able to stay there with the lots open?
Yes.
Okay.
Alderman Swanton? No. Alderman Grant?
Just a real quick follow-up on that. Our extension, you said, I think you said May, whatever. We still have the 2-week extension. So in theory, if
Correct.
they can't finish it, even if it's Monday and Tuesday, they in theory have the whole week to finish.
Correct. And in regards to the 2-week extension with the Phase 5 project, just so you're aware, the contractor did, as you know, reach out to ask if they can continue working in the Phase 5 area. They've decided, and I talked to Fran yesterday to see if they were going to go back to that area to resume work. And right now, because of the increase in traffic in that area, it has slowed down their production tremendously, and it's just not something that they want to do at this point in time for safety reasons, with the amount of increase in visitors and traffic.
And then just real quick, on the RCCP, on the 135, if it's 3 towns, how are you splitting the money? Or is it gonna come down to the prioritization of the projects?
It's going to be 135, and it's for, it's one project. It's seen as one project for 3 towns, so it'd be one application.
Right, but I mean, so in theory, we could get all of it if we have higher priorities, or we could get none of it, or how do the towns split it?
It would
Or we
be,
don't know?
well, it would be to engage an engineer, would be the first step, and that's really what that money is going to encompass, to identify what areas and prioritize what's needed most.
And then just to follow up
rank those.
on the Peters Park thing, I think it looks spectacular compared to what it was, especially having walked that before, so very nice job, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, and we will move on then to open forum. Do we have anybody signed up
I
now?
do have one,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, to go back to one other thing. Our fire chief is with us through Zoom this morning. I reported to the board in our fire rating. We just completed that process with the inspection. So he's prepared this morning to just talk briefly about that letter, what that means, and what our rating is.
Chief, you don't look very happy. Can you hear us?
Oh, I'm tickled to death. I'm in the great town of Sanford.
Okay, we'll turn it over to
How are
you.
y'all doing? All right, so we had a lot of work to do, and I got to thank the fire department staff because they really dug their heels in because we were behind the ball on this inspection. We knew it was coming. We didn't know the date, and the guys really stepped up and made some things happen. So we maintained a 4, which is what we were prior to my hiring. I was pleased and disappointed all at the same time because of the hard work the guys put in. I was hoping we'd at least drop to a 3. And to give you some perspective, we scored a 4 is 60 to 69.99 points, and we scored a 69.11. So if we'd have got to 70, we'd have got it a 3. But it gives us something to shoot for our next inspection. And they identified some deficiencies. Obviously 40% of it's our water pressure, which we don't have any control of, and I've had a lot of conversations with ONWASA about it. But the thing most people don't realize is the state of North Carolina gives a water department the option to choose. They can either be a residential service or they can be a firefighting service. which includes the residential as well. Onwassa is a residential service, so them putting in fire hydrants is a benefit. It's not something they have to do, unfortunately. But you know, that's on them. So I appreciate their fire hydrants. But you know, we got some things we can do to make up points. We discovered if we'll do 2 trainings a year at the training tower on the opposite side of the county, we'll pick up some points there. Obviously, we took a hit because we don't have a second ladder truck. So in the state of North Carolina's eyes, if you have more than 50% that's over 3 stories or 35 foot, you require 2 ladder trucks. Every beach community takes a hit on that. It is what it is. So stuff like that. Nothing detrimental.
Does the board have any questions for Chief?
I do. Chief, could you explain how that community rating service rating affects our insurance rates in town?
So the way the state has it set up is we're based off a 1 through 10 scale. Obviously, the lower the number, the cheaper your fire insurance becomes. So we're actually in the top by being classified as a 4. We are in the there's only 6,900 departments countrywide that are in that out of all the fire departments across the country. So obviously, the better we perform, the better the rating, and the better your fire insurance is. You know, and like I said, some of it we don't have control over. Like our 911 center, we're rated off of that. I will say Onslow County does an excellent job at maintaining and upgrading their 911 center to keep their rating high. Onwassa is doing a good job. So, you know, it was an eye-opening experience, but you know, hats off to the staff because they really got a lot of stuff accomplished to make this happen and maintain where we were at. So,
Okay. Any other questions? No, and I appreciate the efforts to Chief, and that's one of the questions you probably heard me ask Alice. I know she's contacted on Onwassa to see if they can help us in any way as far as the water pressure.
yeah, unfortunately, the booster pump they're putting in is to help maintain the amount of pressure they have at peak times and seasons. Really, you'll never see a tower, 1, because of maintenance, 2, because of cost in both the tower and the cost in maintenance, and 2, the amount of property it requires to put up a tower. Unfortunately, there's just not that much property in North Topsail Beach. But I know they are looking at it. Matt called me yesterday, and he and I had a long conversation, and they understand we have some issues, but like I said, they're not in the firefighting business. They're in the water business.
I have a follow-on.
Go ahead,
I
sir.
have a follow-on. While we have you on the line, Chief, even though it's in your consent agenda, which we normally just approve, I did want to ask you, if you look through all of the different categories you have there in terms of fires, rescues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it seems like in the beach town that we would have a lot more water rescues, swift water rescues, beach rescues, inlet rescues than most inland communities would. And I applaud your efforts to keep our crews, firemen trained for that activity. I've noticed your trucks along the beach at the beach access, and the guys are out there working on their water rescue techniques. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We try to stay proficient. You know, being a realist, firefighting nowadays is 1% of what we do. And most of it's medical and water rescue being on an island. So we got to stay pretty proficient in all aspects.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mr.? Okay. All right, the next item is the open forum. Do we have anybody who signed up? Okay, would you like to come up, sir?
Yeah.
If you could just give your name and address, that we'll start with them.
It's Michael Afifi, 9 Hunter Heath, North Hubs Beach. I'm here to talk about the pool situation. I stood in this exact same position about 5 years ago, and we had the exact same conversation. I'm a structural engineer by trade, project manager, and one of the main people over at A&A Builders, Access Realty. So we have a lot of experience with oceanfront pools. We have a lot of experience with waterfront pools. One of the things that we deal with is CAMA. CAMA is the most stringent entity in the federal government that we deal with, and I deal with DOT, and that's saying something, guys. So CAMA has a lot of rules that we have to follow. They spend, I think their budget is over $50 million as a federal agency to do studies, designs, implementations, flyovers, scaling, graphic design, all of the things that go into making the rules for what you can and cannot do. I am an owner. I live here. My children are here. They go to school here. I want it to be here for forever. I own property in all 3 cities, and we want this barrier island to be protected forever. So 5-6 years ago, I guess it was, when we had this the same exact conversation about pools, I think we all kind of came together as a community, as people who deal with CAM on a daily basis, the builders. We're looking at it in terms of revenue for our owners. We're looking at it in terms of tax value that helps towns and municipalities, because it does increase the value of a home. But it also is a safety mechanism. I have a whole, on the rental aspect of it with Access Realty, we have a whole lot of clients that won't rent oceanfront properties without having a pool. Some people are just scared of the ocean. So it's an aspect with that. Now, we won't get into why and, and the reasons behind all of that. But it is one extra thing. So we all came together, and I think our rules back then were no pools within the CAMA setbacks whatsoever, right? So we all came together and said, wait a second. We have a shifting diagram here with the with the stable line of natural vegetation, right? So that is a moving object. That product moves every single year. We have the static line in place now because you guys have had the forethought to go in and put in a static line, which is very helpful for us as builders and as homeowners, because we know we can always have that area back. However, the static line moves, and now CAMA, being the most restrictive agency that we deal with, has said it's either or. It's not one, right? So it's not, we don't get to build to the static line. We don't get to take our 60 foot from the static line. We got to take the 60 foot from the most restrictive of the two. And in most cases, especially when you do a renourishment project, which we're in the middle of right now, we're putting dirt on top of the vegetation. So when Curtis and Rob and everybody goes out and does these analysis on the dune and they stake our stable line, 98.9% of the time, it's more restrictive than where the static line is. I've got 4 permits in right now, all of which have 15 to 20 feet of extra barrier that we can't build in. All right, so it's already restrictive, and it's already a pretty restrictive area that we're compressing to put these homes and things into. The primary dune I'm not proficient on, so I won't comment on that. What I will comment on is I think the agreement that the board, the builders, the owners, and the entire town as a community came up with, where we would not put a pool or a decking of the pool beyond the toe of the dune, the landward toe of the dune, I think was a realistic, manageable, and future protection of our dune structure. I thought that was a way that we could all get what we wanted: protect our dune, protect the turtles, protect the people, protect the property, as well as allowing a product that we all, or a lot of the clientele who are purchasing these extraordinarily high-priced pieces of land, could make value and make work. So I think the entirety of what came about 5 years ago was a pretty well thought out and well backed in science design. And I'd ask the board, you know, when you're comparing to other municipalities, one of the reasons we had this conversation 5 years ago when we didn't allow it in CAMA was that CAMA allowed it and other towns around us allowed it. And we didn't want to be the one town that stood out, that wasn't allowing a product for safety purposes, but also for enjoyability for our residents. So that's my piece. I deal with CAMA on a daily basis. I work with them foot and toe every single day. I know how restrictive they are. I know where their hearts. They do a lot of studies to make sure that we are not impinging on the dunes and protecting them in all the way. To be honest with you, before this all came about, I didn't think there was a primary dune in all of North Topsail Beach. I had been told by Rob, I've been told by Curtis, I've been told by Jason Dale that all we had was a temporary berm structure. So hearing that we had a primary dune was kind of shocking. So, you know, we as builders would love to work with you guys in helping in any way we can. I have a whole lot of experience in dealing with this as a structural engineer. I do this every single day. So if any time there was a community workshop that wanted to be held, I would gladly attend and would help along.
I appreciate your time, sir, and I appreciate the feedback, and it will be recorded. I know Ms. Hill is not here today because she's at a conference. We are lucky enough to have Ms. McLeod in the audience, so she's also heard you speak and can relay your message back to the planning board as well. So thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, then we are going to move on to public presentations, and hopefully we have Mr. Way online. Can you hear us, Fran?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right, there you are.
Okay, I will share my screen. My name's Fran Way. I'm a coastal engineer with Applied Technology and Management. I've been working with the town for several years now, and a lot of the things that I'm going to go over, Alice has already touched upon, but I will kind of get through this. The first slide is just an overview of the Topsail Beach shorelines from phase 1 up near New River Inlet down to phase 5 on the border of Surf City. We have a few sections, you know, we're working on the truck haul right now is in phase 2. We have a phase 1 project in the works, and actually the Army Corps of Engineers and Navigation District, they also have a project in the works for next season. And then we have the phase 5 project that had just stopped and will continue next season as well. This is the dune truck haul that's occurring right now north of the pier. There's a Jenkins Way access right here, and they're working from the north down back to the access, and then they'll be going from the south and working back up. This is just to complete this project, and this is the Category B project that completed. Note that this phase 2 shoreline, there was lots of restrictions, and basically FEMA had to make, you know, basically we broke the shoreline down into 1,000-foot sections and had to calculate losses and Florence losses to the dune system every 1,000 feet. This did not, so some sections of dune fared a lot worse during Florence than others. This is one area that the erosion here from Florence in this area was moderate, relatively speaking, to some of the other areas where the dune, you know, completely breached and that sort of area. And actually the breach, there were some areas around this area. The erosion was non-uniform. FEMA has, you know, there's non-uniform calculations that we have to do every 1,000 feet of beach. And then on top of that, the CAMA and DCM restrictions on dune placement is also restrictive in many areas. And I was calling basically the inlet hazard areas in general have very restrictive policies on rebuilding dunes. But it really does seem like the CAMA DCM staff have kind of adopted those really restrictive inlet hazard area dune restrictions and kind of applied them to more of the standard regular beach. And I'm pushing back on that, but it's just difficult with some of these projects where CAMA is basically saying you can only put this much sand out there, you cannot put this much sand, and then we just argue up and down the beach every 1,000 feet on how much sand we can put back on that dune. This is that area in phase one, Topsail Reef Villas. This is that area that the permitting is wrapping, the DCM permitting is wrapping up. The Army Corps of Engineers permitting we should have soon. This project will occur, November 16th. When the window opens. We will, have to work on, selecting a contractor and everything like that for this project. But, and this project is related to the grant money that Alice mentioned earlier.
Fran,
Yes.
Fran, are you saying that there are some permitting issues that you're running into now with this project? And is that potentially going to change the amount of fill that you can get there? Or what is the potential impact to this project?
That's a good question. This one is okay. This one is a project, this is a beach project,
Okay.
not a dune project. And it seems like DCM CAMA, and then because this is a beach project and it involves, placing material under the mean high water line, MHW. So we have to go through the Army Corps of Engineers as well. CAMA DCM seemed fine with placing sand on the beach, just like we're doing in phase 5. Putting sand on the beach in walkable areas they seem to have no issues with that. It does take a little more permitting because it is with the Army Corps of Engineers, but it just seems like there's a sensitivity to the dunes that we're seeing, even with the dune crossovers and getting to rebuild those. And when we plant the vegetation, like when does that vegetation count as stable vegetation where we can put a crossover? It just seems like the dune, and then the dune truck haul when we're doing phase 2, that is kind of the issue. And then even with that Onslow County Beach Access 4, that's also where they just seem to be ultra sensitive onto the dune. But a beach placement like this, they seem completely fine with.
Thank you.
Fran, I have a follow-on question while we're talking about this area of the beach. You and I were both on the long-term memorandum agreement shallow draft meeting in the last hour, and you heard Brendan Dooley tell us that the Army Corps' maintenance work plan for 222 includes about $3 million that Senator Tillis got for us and the other coastal towns in North Carolina for the Army Corps' budget. And they're planning to start their Channel to Jacksonville dredging work contracts at least in September. So it seems to me there's going to need to be some good coordination between you and the Army Corps in placement of sand in this Cat G area along the reef and as well as behind the town Sandbag revetment further north. So
In September?
The Army Corps is going to let the contracts for the dredge companies in September. We don't know when the work will be done, and that's why I'm making the point, because Fran will need to coordinate with the Army Corps so we don't have two projects overlapping with different contractors.
So along that lines, can we make sure that we've noted this is a potential project on our shoreline protection page, or somewhere, so we just don't lose track of coordination with Fran and the shallow draft folks? Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Fran.
Yep, and I totally agree with Alderman Benson, and we will be, coordinating. And this is pretty standard with these projects, these navigation projects, as they, I've just finished one with Holden Beach where we had to coordinate, where there's two separate projects and we can work together, and we do, but it does require coordination. But it is fairly common where the navigation project and a separate project kind of have to get coordinated. Here's what the phase 5 project, as Alice mentioned, it's going well, and we did. May is a difficult time because a lot of the truckers, a lot of the roadway projects are really kicking into gear, and then just vehicle traffic and beach traffic have just really slowed the productivity. but we're, ahead of schedule. And as Alice mentioned, it was, the official count was just over 120,000 cubic yards. It was like 120,051 cubic yards placed. So, good, we're on track, and the material looks great. It's a good color. It's a nice consistency. Really pleased with it. And then even the CAMA DCM staff, the Division of the Wildlife Resources Commission and the National Fisheries Service, or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they've all gone out and they've all been pleased with the project as well. So, it seems like it's going well, and, no issues with the material at all. It's very nice material. Here are some other images of the material being placed. And as I mentioned to the mayor, the regulatory agencies, especially CAMA, DCM, who seem kind of driving the train on the regulatory approval, and the natural resource agencies, they're very happy with this. And the beach placement projects, they seem to be okay with. It's just we're getting a lot more, sand fencing, even planting, dune grass, which we are doing. There's much more scrutiny on the dune projects. It seems. Here's as Alice mentioned, we are making progress on this one. We do have this is the Onslow County Beach Access 4 project. We have an extension to May 20th on this one, and this should only be maybe about a 3-day project, but obviously we will have the trucks and heavy equipment coming in and out of this access. And, so Alice, there will have to be, some coordination with that. We want to get this project done as quickly as possible, because, the longer we wait, the more crowded it's going to get. Really trying to replace this dune and get this dune in place is important for to keep that water off of New River Inlet Road in this area. So Beachtown, the project updates, the phase 2 truck haul is being completed. The ST Wooten, that project for phase 5, that it's been completed for this May, and it will begin in November. The phase 1 Dorian project that we mentioned, that's the project in front of the Topsail Reef Villas. That's partially, that's about 15,000 cubic yards of that material is for FEMA Hurricane Dorian. And then the rest of that project will be that state grant money. Will occur in the next environmental window. The New River Inlet Management Master Plan EIS. I had a meeting, attended a call, it was a couple of weeks ago with Dial Cordy and with Mickey Suggs at the Army Corps of Engineers, who's, heading up the project on that, with, related to the terminal groin and other alternatives. He suggested, Mickey did, that the town can call him, possibly once a month. And he prefers it if an elected official calls him to kind of just check in. I don't think you necessarily need to do that now. He is moving forward with this. On the Jordan Jessup, who was working as his kind of assistant on this project, he's relocating to the Charleston district out of the Wilmington district. So that is, unfortunate, because he was working on this project and now he's not. And so we need to keep on Mickey to make sure that he is getting the help he needs within the Army Corps of Engineers to keep this moving forward. And then Mickey has reviewed a few things, and we are, moving forward with that EIS processing, and Dial Cordy is putting together that environmental impact statement. But we have to stay on top of Mickey to make sure this thing keeps moving forward. And I can help, but he really does. The Wilmington district, the Army Corps of Engineers, kind of consider the elected officials kind of their bosses, or they're the ones that they have to listen to the most versus a consultant. So, I think, a monthly call or, just every 6 weeks by someone from the board would probably help, make sure this process continues to move forward.
Just
Working with North Topsail,
just to
with any
add, we
questions?
do have a meeting scheduled, a phone meeting scheduled with Mickey Sugg on May 10th at 9 o'clock with myself, the mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we took your advice on that as well, Fran, so we wanted to get on the calendar, and then we'll just go from there as far as having some regular calls to see if we can get the
Okay.
CIS wrapped up.
Okay, and then I did, we mentioned the possibility of just scheduling a monthly call with Mickey, and Mickey did not like that idea. He's like, I don't like the monthly calls. I'm always busy. My schedule's changing. He did prefer the more kind of informal meetings and calls versus a monthly meeting. But, I guess at the town, we could try to figure something out, maybe a compromise in that where we can try to get, Mickey, focused on this project and not, on other things. And I'd love to, he probably does need to, get someone, to work with him, now that Jordan's leaving.
Okay,
Now, working with, I still continue to work with, the Caitlin Finance Officer and DEC Associates regarding kind of funding and state grants. As Alderman Benson mentioned, that there's going to be a good amount of, sand from the navigation dredging along the intercoastal waterway, and there possibly some of the channels to Jacksonville. That material would get on the beach, so that's great. The Division of Water Resources also mentioned that there is, about $18 million in grant money for beach nourishment projects. And I'll continue to, and I'm sure Alderman Benson is going to continue to stay on top of that. But that might be a good, that $18 million. It sounds like Oak Island got a $20 million grant for the project, which is a huge amount of money for just one island. So, I think there will be a little bit of competition for that 18 million in grant funding, but that's definitely seems like something that the town we should look into. Seal planting, I did, as Alice mentioned, I did speak with Steve Mercer, and we have that water meter so that there's no delay in that. He's got a team. His team will be up here next week, and they will begin planting. They're going to start around the first major beach access at as soon as you get onto New River Inlet Road, and they're going to work up, and then they are going to go back and any plants that didn't take from last season, they're going to go back and replace those. And it is going to be the CO planting, and basically they'll have a team up there, and they'll be up there working for months. And they're going to work south at the beginning, and then later on they will start working north, basically from that, basically that beach access, the main beach access as soon as you get on the New River Inlet Road. And that's kind of the plan, and we'll just kind of continue to coordinate with them and make sure that they're moving forward. It's all going to be hand planting. Because will be on that dune face, the seaward dune face. So it is a little slower, but that's just necessary. And then the county beach access, we're working on that, trying to get that here by May 20. And that's my update.
thank you, sir. So I'm gonna ask if anybody has any questions for Mr. Way. I'm gonna start with Alderman Grant.
Just real quick, when we're looking at, on the phase 5 stuff, you're talking 120,000, it's about 20% of what's going down there eventually, starting back up in November and then through April. My math tells me we're not gonna get that done during that period as well, right? Are we gonna be able to put down 500,000 cubic yards of sand in phase 5 between November of this year and April of next year?
We think it can happen, but it will be a tight schedule. Then as you know, the plan was, basically, we did get funding for about half that, 600,000 cubic yards of material. And then we were going to, this summer, we're going to have to bid out the second half of that project, which will begin immediately after the first project with SD Wooten is completed. So it's a tight timeline, but we think we can do it.
Okay, I mean, I'm just following up on the mayor's comment about coordinating things to make sure every day we lose on the front end of this because we haven't gotten the bidding out or we haven't gotten something else. I think it should be our absolute focus to get this started on the first day we were able to put sand down in phase 5, starting this fall, which means getting the bidding done, getting everything else done, getting everything else coordinated, because we sure don't want to have something where, we get 80% of it done or 90% of it done because we didn't start until December. So
Because there was a hold up with paperwork.
because we got messed up with paperwork, so. That's all.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thanks, Mayor. It's Mike Fran. I do have several questions. First, I just want to kind of backtrack to your comment about the Coastal Storm Mitigation Fund, and we have to thank our Representative Pat McElrath, our friend over, I guess, in Carteret County, who worked through the legislature for a number of years to get that $40 million placed in that fund. But my question to you, you said that we could take advantage of this. My question is, with the FEMA projects where the federal government won't allow us to do Cat G projects in a COBRA zone, and thus only the Dune project, does the state, since the state follows the federal, are we going to be able to use those state funds in that coastal mitigation fund in COBRA area? That's the question.
I actually have that as I wrote Cobra question mark next to that grant money when they did that. That obviously the board has been working on trying to get that area, most of the area out of the Cobra zone, the federal Cobra zone. I would, and obviously the grant, the $1.5 million grant that the town got has no strings attached to it related to Cobra.
Right.
I'm not sure if there's any kind of lobbying that the town can do to make sure that it just seems like you might have a little more influence in trying to get some of those Cobra restrictions off of that state funding versus, obviously, I think the FEMA stuff is pretty much set in stone at this moment. But some of that state stuff is just kind of an interpretation, or they a lot of times will just import it over just by default. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it seems like state funding should. I would think state funding should not be, using Cobra, which is a federal thing. But that is a huge issue, and that's something I guess we'll have to keep looking into.
Well, we're using that 1.5 million in the Cobra area for dune restoration, basically a Cat B project with FEMA. So, yeah, I don't think there's any question there. But had we tried to do a Cat G project in that area, question is, would there have been a question? But this is something we need to, like you said, do our due diligence on and be sure that we're ahead of the curve if we do plan such a project where we want to put sand on the beach, the berm, rather than just being able to put it in the dune to protect infrastructure. The next question I had was, you mentioned the EIS work that's going on, and you got back your engineer's report from Mississippi or wherever that research and development lab is, and there was a question about which direction a potential, I say the word potential, terminal groin might be placed at the New River Inlet. Your engineer's report suggested north placement for that groin, and the Mississippi people said south. So the question is, how are you going to either refute the Mississippi opinion, or are you going to have to do additional modeling to decide which is the best alternative for the positioning of the groin? And if you have to do additional modeling, there's certainly going to be additional expense to the town. So we'd kind of like your assessment of where you are with that stage of the EIS work.
I did reply to the Vicksburg Core District, the Engineering Research Development Center, ERDIC. They did not explicitly ask for more modeling, but that is something we are looking into. But basically, they were looking at one particular figure, and we're recommending a slightly different alignment of the terminal groin based on one metric. And there are several other metrics that they were not looking at when they made that comment. And I did, successfully refute that comment. It was more just a comment, I believe, where if you gave this project to 10 different coastal engineers, they would all come up with something about the same, but slightly different. And that ERDIC comment was really kind of picking out. It was trying to fine tune the design in general, the overall layout, and several of those options would work, and it's just kind of trying to figure out which is the most beneficial, and especially when looking at navigation and the channel. This is not a navigation project, the terminal groin, but being able to safely navigate New River Inlet is a big issue. And when ERDIC made that comment, they really weren't factoring in what was going on in the inlet. They were just factoring in what was going on that particular section of beach in front of basically the Topsail Reef Villas area.
So there may not be any additional cost. That may be you responding the way you've said to us to their comment.
Correct.
Okay. I got one last question, Fran. Sorry to take so much time. Could you go back to share your screen with us and go to your slide? It was about the third one in your presentation. It's the truck haul north of pier.
Okay, right here.
It shows the completed work in blue arrow and the to be completed work in the yellow arrow.
Yes.
And my question here is, when I first heard about the numbers involved, and I'm talking about
Right.
the cubic yards of sand,
Yep.
I was totally, my math just wasn't coming together. And
Right.
you've kind of explained this, but my real question is, there's about 28, about 25,000 linear feet of dune to restore. And we've got about a mile to go, and we put X amount of sand in so far, and all of a sudden the fill rate on the work that's going on right now is fourfold less than the fill rate on average you were using before the project had to be paused by Manager Durian. So how is this new fill rate, the 7,300 cubic yards that is being placed as we speak, how is that going to compare to what's like in the Marina Way, where they're working right now with finishing that section up in the Marina Way area? How does these fill volumes compute with what we were doing last season? Thank you.
It's within the range. As I mentioned, it was non-uniform. Basically, the FEMA had us calculate, based on 1,000-foot sections of beach, and then CAMA, DCM has been restricting placement in several areas. This is based on what we can prove basically how much loss that Florence occurred and how much we're allowed to put back. The placement range is on the smaller side, but it is within kind of the variable range. There were some other areas where we're putting a little bit less material than this along the beach. I can get those for you, but there are some areas just south of Topsail Reef Villas that we put a tremendous amount of sand because they lost so much, and we could prove that the Florence dune there got tremendously eroded. It's a non-uniform area. It's not, we can't just say everyone gets exactly
Right.
cubic yards per linear foot. And this is one of those areas. This is one of those areas where you saw that there was a few areas that are deemed more crucial to being protected prior to last season, and that's why we kind of hit some areas. And these were the areas that were some of the more healthy dune areas, and that's why they are getting touched up last.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, Mike brought this up and I missed it before. This is going to be directed at our council. This issue about whether we can use state funds for Cobra areas has been represented to me that there is no restriction. And when we're looking at doing beach projects and stuff, I think if we're looking at as a town as to how to spend the money, and we can get state money, for zones that we can't get FEMA money for, that would be very important to us as to how we plan out how we're going to operate the beach. And also it would help if we're lobbying the state for money to know that we can use that in non-federal areas. So if it's okay, and I direct my comment to the mayor and to the board, I don't want to leave this thing hanging out for Fran to go back and say, I'm going to look at this. Is there a way to have our council look at this issue and kind of put it to bed? Because that is a real big issue for us. Because if you look at the work that we're doing now, this is all FEMA stuff, and the areas that are not FEMA are basically getting nothing. But if we've got state money that we can use in those areas and then combine it with the FEMA stuff, that changes the dynamic of what we can do on the beach and the amount of work that we can do on the beach. So I would ask.
Sorry. If it's the consensus of the board to direct me to do that research, I'll be happy to do that.
Well, I think this is an important question. I think that we should do our own due diligence before we ask our attorney to do this, because if it gets put before the state in a kind of a formal request,
That's not how I do it.
we
Well, number one,
we
these-
could
I'm
not
assuming
we
you're
could
just gonna come
possibly
back to
get an
us and
answer
find
we
out
don't
if
want to
they're-
get
Right.
by asking the question in the wrong way.
this is an
No,
open
I guess
meeting.
I'm looking at it as this would be
So
a
the
legal,
state can
legal,
watch
re-
this right
legal
now.
report that you would make to the board,
Based on your thoughts.
based on your thought as to what
Fine.
we can and can't do.
By and large, that'll be, and Fran, can you hear me?
Yes.
By and large, that'll be dictated by the grant, in terms of the grants.
But my point is, if we can word grants the correct way, if, when I first joined the board, it was my understanding that state was only allowed in FEMA areas. And it's been represented to me that that's not the case. And I think the 1.5 proves that for us. And so I think that if we're looking at filing for grants or asking for money, if we phrase it in a way where, what I'm looking at doing is adding more money to the pile and into the work that we can do on the beach, right?
Right.
And so if state is only matching a FEMA thing, and we're looking at that, or if we can get state money for non-FEMA areas, all right? It just seems to me that the amount of money the town can get and the work that we can do on the beach is going to be expanded.
It sounds to me like what we're contemplating is asking our council if there's any statutes or any limitations that are visible to you
Sure.
when you look. And as you said, I mean, the
It's going to be on a
request,
grant-by-grant basis. most
that's
of the
what I was
time.
saying, the request would be grant by grant basis.
But to your point, if you apply for a grant that specifies a geographic area, and we get the grant, and there's no condition that qualifies it, if that area meets X, Y, Z criteria,
That's exactly.
then we're good to go.
That's exactly where I'm going. Is that with the way we phrase our grants, or the way we present those and ask for that money, we're, in my opinion, we're better off
having less restrictions on where we can use the money, you know, within that area. If we say we want it for, you know, phase 3, I'm making that up, but if we're asking for money for phase 3, or for a project, maybe it's 3, 4, and 5, who knows? The less restrictions we have on the use of those funds, I think the better we are.
But as we, go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, the 1.5 was not a grant, it was an allocation.
I'm just using it, just general comment about
So,
money.
but I think if we could just be clear on what we're asking for, we're asking Mr. Eads to just take a look and see if there's any specific documentation or statutes that would prohibit us for requesting funds for those areas. Okay. Is the board okay with that? And then he can bring it back to the board?
And since that would be legal advice, that would be a closed session item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for Fran? No? Well, thank you, Fran. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next item is the consent agenda. I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions or concerns about any of the items on the consent agenda that we need to pull out to discuss. If not, then I would like to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, on to continuing business. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem for the BISAC report.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, our BISAC committee met for, I guess, the third time back in April 26th. The report is that we had a really good session with our coastal advisor, Chris Gibson, on shoreline protection. I think it really helped the committee members who weren't familiar with some of these technical concepts of beach profiles and dunes and burn versus so forth, and depth exposure and all this technical stuff. It really helps the committee understand better what the issues are as we work to understand shoreline protection. The other thing that we talked about in the committee and we're bringing to the board is the charter for this Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee. Sorry. The charter for the Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee. This charter was a draft charter back to the board when the formation of the committee was being considered by the board. And so we've had several months as a board to look at it if we wished. The committee, once we met as a committee, and I'm in chair of the BISAC committee this year, we went through it at this past meeting, made a few minor editorial changes, nothing major. So we are asking the board, our recommendation is to ask the board to make their changes in the charter and approve it. So that was where we would be with that recommendation. And I don't know if you want to take these things one thing at a time, Mayor, or how you want to handle the recommendation on the approval of the charter.
I'd like to see if everybody has had a chance to review the charter prior to come in, and if anybody has any questions on it.
Just real quick. I'm on the BISAC committee. My question on that is, and it goes to what you just said, Mayor, if people haven't had a time to look at this thing, I think it'd be better for, to let us know and not have it come back and then we try to change it again. So, I mean, I'm fine, but if we also, and I may be wrong protocol-wise, we've done the BISAC report, but I don't think we've asked for specific approval of anything. We have in terms of what we submitted, but if I'm looking at the agenda and I was not privy to what Mike and I have been working on, just want to make sure that
everybody's comfortable with doing that. Because that was one of the questions we had on the committee, Mike, was just to make sure that the board is comfortable. And I know there were issues about the word environmental and some other stuff that came out of the planning board, and so I don't want to put the board in a position of, you know, preemptively approving something until you've given it some thought, is my point.
And actually, that's my only concern, as we talked about in the previous meeting, is just understanding how all the organizations will communicate and work together. And just looking through this, that didn't jump out at me. So is it in here somewhere that I'm just not seeing?
Once the board approved our vision and mission statement, we added that to the charter. We did not specifically add anything about how this committee should interact with other committees that the town has in place. That our committee would report to the Board of Aldermen. The Board of Aldermen would then take our report and proceed with what additional consideration needs to be given for it. So no, we didn't do that, but you're going to find in the next item I'm going to report on that issue has already come up, and hopefully we've got it resolved now.
So what your thoughts are, just to make sure we're being clear, is that the committee would report to the Board of Aldermen, and then it would be the Board of Aldermen to make a determination whether we feel that something needs to go to the planning board for additional consideration.
Right.
I'm just trying to be very clear as to what the flow would be, that we're not bypassing.
Right.
And it's not to take any of the authority away from the planning board at all. It's basically, we would make, the committee makes a representation to this board, and this board decides what it wants to do with that recommendation.
Okay. That was my only question, and I really wanted to bring it up just for clarification.
I've read through the proposed charter and looked it all over, and I thought it was very well done. I try to sometimes find the flaws, and quite honestly, I mean, I'll go over it again, but I thought it was very well done, and I couldn't, reading through it, couldn't find anything to criticize.
So it sounds like from a BISAC perspective, you're asking the Board of Aldermen to make a motion and approve the charter, the proposed charter?
Well, I was, but I'm having second thoughts.
Okay.
2 of the board members are on the BISAC committee, so we kind of have a vested interest. And we don't have really a majority here
Without
of
Mr. Hart.
people without Alderman Hart. So
Okay.
could we postpone a vote on the charter until the June meeting?
Sure.
I agree.
Because Alderman Grant and I should recuse ourselves from the vote.
And then I would also suggest, if you haven't had a chance, any board member who hasn't had a chance to go through it, please do, and direct any questions that you might have to Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, the next item in our report is titled Unencapsulated Styrofoam Float Ordinance, and as we just mentioned, there was, I made a mistake. I've already apologized to Planning Director Hill for this, and I apologize to the Planning Director both through email and personally to the members that I have had contact with in the last week or so, specifically at the Shoreline Protection Commission meeting. But our committee is concerned about protecting the environment, because that is part of shoreline protection. And we are in the process, island-wide, of developing ways to protect the environment, particularly when it comes to styrofoam on floats that are used to hold up docks and piers, mostly on the intercoastal areas. It's a real problem, as I'll explain when I do attend the planning board meeting coming up in a week or so. But the issue is this styrofoam breaks down into small pieces that never go away. We're talking decades, hundreds of years. You know, the next ice age, when it falls out, the people are going to say, "Oh, what's this?" Oh, they used to be. It's that. So anyway, the point is, the BISAC committee developed guidelines for an ordinance. So we are presenting in the packet the guidelines for an ordinance to require that dock floats, the styrofoam be encapsulated in a material that will protect that styrofoam from being broken down when it gets hit by something or weather or whatever. So that's the gist of what we're trying to do. And it does involve the structure, so we does need to be considered by the planning board because their jurisdiction would cover structures, setbacks, all this sort of thing. So at this point, we are giving the board guidelines for what the wording that we should be a part of the ordinance. We are asking the board to then send these guidelines to the planning board for them to review. And I envision that Planning Director Hill will actually write the ordinance if there's support from the planning board for it, like there is from the BISAC committee to the board. So that's kind of where we are on that. I'm not going to go through the guidelines. They're in the board packet if you want to read them. But that's sort of the how the situation got off on the wrong foot and how we've tried to get things squared away between the planning board and the new BISAC committee. And with that, I'll take any questions. Otherwise, that's the end of the report.
So are you asking for a motion, or at least not a motion, but at least consensus from the board to ask the planning board to review this?
That's a recommendation, yeah.
Okay, so we need direction from the board to be able to do that.
Okay.
So is there anybody on the board that's opposed to sending this to the planning board? No? Okay. So if we could just reflect that in the minutes, that'd be good. Anything else, Mayor Pro Tem, on that? You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
All right. Sandbag revetment update. That's also you.
Oh, that's me.
That's you.
It's your mic.
This has been a very frustrating process for the town and for the property owners behind the Sandbag revetment at the north end of the island at the inlet area. We do have a committee. There are four, well, to make a long story short, there are 4 members of the plaintiffs on the committee, and there are 4 members from the town, 2 aldermen, the town manager, and a citizen representative. And we've been working with one engineer for approximately 3 years, I think, to come to an agreement as to how we're going to proceed. And we've had a lot of difficulty with the problem of liability, and our attorney has advised us to have the contractor we're trying to work with, the engineering firm, to provide a waiver of liability that could affect the town, I guess, another lawsuit potentially. So maybe you need to comment on this, attorney.
Let me just clarify that. We started with one engineer. Right. There's a whole procedure that the settlement agreement lays out as how the engineer selected. The first engineer fizzled out, just kind of disappeared, to put it simply. We went with this new engineer. Unbeknownst to us, he was in collaboration with another gentleman and told us after he sent us his first invoice, essentially that we would need to use that individual that he was collaborating with as a contractor unless we get sued or face a lawsuit because he had used in his design possibly proprietary information from this other person. Being a municipal entity, we said no, we'd go out for competitive bidding. We can't agree to something like that. And the only way we're going to allow you to use this design is if you indemnify us if this person that we had no contractual relationship with, nor did we authorize the engineer to bring in, indemnify us from any claims that that entity brings. That entity has since, or that gentleman has since passed away, but to date, the engineer has not been willing to give us that indemnification.
And Attorney Eads actually wrote the waiver for the engineer, so it was a no-brainer. It's just for the
Right.
engineer to take, it's only two or
Well,
three sentences.
The bottom line
But
is,
he will not.
why wouldn't he sign it if he
Right.
felt comfortable that we weren't going to be exposed?
Right.
So,
So basically, the report is we're still paused on the revetment. Fortunately, as we've seen, we had a pretty severe nor'easter this winter. And the revetment, as bad as it looks, is still doing its job. So I don't think that it's a situation that the houses are gonna fall into the ocean if we don't get the restoration work done right away. We've been fortunate because we got sand from the Army Corps' Cedar Bush Cut Channel to Jacksonville Dredge Project the winter before. You heard earlier in the meeting, we're getting additional about $3 million worth of sand on the beach in that area from the Army Corps' next maintenance project. So we've been fortunate in that way that we haven't had a situation that has completely breached the Sandbag revetment. So even though we're in a pause situation, things are, although they're not desirable, at least they're somewhat stable in protecting those structures.
Well, the only thing I'd like to add to that, because I typically say this every time we have this conversation, is that my understanding is if folks are concerned about their home's safety with any sandbags that may not be at, peak performing level, they're able to pull a permit and put sandbags in front of their home. They don't have to wait until this revetment committee comes up with a plan that's going to help them. So I just like to make sure people know that you're not helpless out there. You certainly can also protect your own home. Any dispute, Mr. Benson? No? Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the Parks and Rec update, which is Alderman Plettle.
Alderman Swantack and I held the first meeting of the North Topsail Beach Parks and Rec Committee. And actually I don't have the date that we did that. And I am not feeling well, so if I'm coming off screwier than normal, that's why. We had a couple volunteers. We had Susan Meyer and J.D. Elliott. They have filled out applications, and first of all, we'd like the board to consider appointing them to the committee.
And so do we have a motion?
Move that we appoint them to Parks and Recreation Committee.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? No? Okay.
So we are going to continue to hold meetings, and we are going to continue to try to get more volunteers to join the committee. We are going to meet on the third Tuesdays of the month at 6:30 here at the town hall. We are working on mission statement and goals, and we also have some initial projects, the Earth Day project, which the town manager set up. I know that there was a beautification event and a couple other things that we're looking at doing. We're looking at getting some donations for flowers, mulch, stuff like the soil, stuff like that. Try to get the town looking good. Alderman Swantek, did you have anything to add?
So we're also looking at what we call a beach camp in October. It'll be held at the town park. It seems like we had the guy come up and research the area to see if they're functioning properly. He said, well, we already have a volleyball court for the dance floor. We dancing in the sand. And we're in the progress of doing that.
Okay,
That'll be it, thank you.
all right. Any questions? Then we're just gonna move on to, our town manager with the Bada Bing lease.
Before you move on, are you going to cover the concert?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I was thinking that was under new business. So Alderman Swantek had brought up the fact that we're trying to pull together a beach jam in the October timeframe. And in the board packet, you will see the proposed agreement from the band, and the compensation being $18,000. It is, as Manager Darian had explained to me, it's non-refundable. So this is rain or shine. We're committing to that. I know we have some follow-ups on our side as far as insurance and some things that Alice wanted to do. But at this point in time, if we want to lock in the date, we do need to get this back to him with the deposit. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, Council?
I have, and I have a few suggestions or comments.
Yes, sir.
I understand to reserve the date why they would want a non-refundable deposit. However, I think we should have a mechanism of rescheduling in the event he can't be here that day, or the band can't be here that day due to sickness or inclement weather.
Hurricane.
Exactly.
You want credit if it's postponed.
Right. Right. And then secondly, there's no mention that I can see in either the rider or the cover page of insurance requirements. I would want them to have some sort of general liability insurance. They're talking about they're going to build their own stage or bring their own stage, but if you can see on the rider, the power requirements, and there's just all kinds of possible injurious mechanisms that I would want to make sure that they have their own general liability insurance that would cover this event.
Any other? Okay, and I think that that's probably in line with some of the concerns that you had as well. So, can we give?
Oh, one more thing, I'm sorry, and not trying to be First Amendment police, but we might want to at least have an understanding as to the scope of the type of lyrics. I'm not familiar with this band, but we'd like to kind of know.
Well, they're
If there's.
They're friends with the fire chief, so.
Okay, I mean, if there's 50 kids out there and there's a bunch of explicative stuff.
What I was gonna suggest, if you're looking for something from the board, is that we go ahead and give the town manager the approval, the right to approve it with sign off by the county attorney, on the, county attorney, Jesus, going to too many county meetings, the town attorney, with those conditions
That's
that
what I
are
was
necessary. Does that
And
make sense?
I would say I was kidding about the relationship there, but these folks, from what I understand, perform all the time down in Carolina Beach. So this is the only, and Emerald, yeah, we're like the only town that they haven't been able to perform in yet, so they would really like to be able to come and do it. Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, I just, again, we all like to have a good time, listen to live music, but if it's a family event.
It's
we
a
wanna
family
make
event.
sure they keep the lyrics appropriate.
Yes, sir. So is everybody in agreement on the board that will direct our town manager to move forward with that?
I have had some trepidation, as some of you know, about holding this kind of event and spending this much money in a time when it's bad financially out there, and we are looking at some of our property owners will probably have their property tax nearly doubled, spending money on this. However, looking into it more, and I do think that it looks like it may actually bring some money into our town and help with some of our other projects. And so anybody that's heard me really question having this, I think that talking about it, researching it a little more, I think that it will be a good thing for the town, and it does work into the parks and recs in bringing some more community involvement, making us more of a community and not just a vacation destination.
And I think it also allows a lot of folks like the chamber wants to partner with us on it, as well as some local organizations. So certainly we need to budget for the expense, but the goal and desire, I believe, from the board is to be able to have donations and partners or sponsors and things like that to help offset the cost of this as well.
And the sale of tickets.
Yes, yeah, the chamber said that they would be able to help us with the sale of tickets, so, I mean, I think it's a good partnership opportunity all the way around. Okay, all right, so I think you have your direction, right? Okay. Okay. No, we just give direction.
If that's a council consensus, or excuse me, board consensus, Alice and I. Good.
Okay, next is Bada Bing.
Attached to your agenda is a proposed service contract with Bada Bing to once again rent out the space in the Richard Peters Park complex. I have met with the representative from Bada Bing to renegotiate the lease going forward into this season. This will be for $625 per month. The scope will take place from May 1st through September 30th with the option to operate during October if they choose to do so. Is there any questions on the proposed service contract?
No, ma'am. No.
And they are in agreement with the terms and with the amount.
Yes.
Okay. Then do we need?
Just one quick comment. The timing on this is very good because there is an ice cream gelato place opening up at the county access.
I was gonna ask if anything's opened up.
So I
there
think
yet.
the timing of getting this done now is a very good idea. Because we've actually had that lady's gelato. She's just.
Well, she's not going to walk the beach though like these
No,
folks do.
I'm just talking about, but still, you have two competing places right there, so.
So do we need a motion to approve this? Or just give direction to our town manager?
Authorizing the town manager.
Okay, so are we in consensus as a board to authorize our town manager to move forward? Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda was the Folkstone road lots. So in your packet, you have the draft listing agreement for those parcels. I'm trying to get up to it. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments, but I think we as a board, what we're looking to do there is to be able to provide direction to staff as to whether we would like to list these parcels for sale and use those funds for other opportunities. The reason that we had considered selling them was that in all of our efforts to try and find a use for them over the years, they're just too far out and would not be of value according to all of our department heads. We just don't have a use for them. So, and I will say I have spoken with some of the county officials over the years, as well as Holly Ridge, and I've encouraged if they have any interest in them to please get with us. I've never received anything to bring to the board as far as their interest in them.
That was gonna be my question with Onslow County, is whether there was something we'd do a swap with them or something, because they've got $250 million worth of schools and other stuff. And I think at the last, it was their last meeting, the one before, they were talking about the fact they've got inadequate parking, inadequate fields and things like that, so.
Yeah, and
That's a good
actually, I
comment.
did speak with Alice a little bit about that too, and we did feel that if we just went and listed them, if they do have interest in them, they certainly could get with us and submit an offer. So, but I don't know if can I just ask if anybody has any other questions? Then I believe what we would be doing here is also providing our town manager with direction to move forward with those, and make sure the terms are okay with her. All right, and then we have our second open forum. Do we have anybody signed up? Would anybody like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Get two.
Hi, Susan Meyer, 2224 New River Inlet Road, Unit 138. My question is in regards to the beach jam. Was parking figured out for this?
No, we have not gotten through anything except the initial conversation to see if we could do it and if they had any dates available. There's gonna have to be a committee associated with this, whether it's you guys or whether we have somebody focused on it, because we are gonna have to do some shuttles, we're gonna have to do something.
Right, because
Yeah.
the,
Agreed.
we'll lose parking for beach parking too if we, you know.
Well, in October, I don't know how bad that will be, at least it's not the middle of the summer, so, but no,
True.
I don't believe that has been.
Well, that was just one of the things that was brought up at the committee meeting, and
Yeah,
I
think
didn't
we're
know
gonna
if that
need
was
a-
all worked out or what.
I think we're gonna need a checklist of items that we're gonna have to work through, for sure.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Did you volunteer to figure out parking, Susan? Is that what I? No, that wasn't me.
Hello, Rebecca Dixon, 113 Barton Bay Court. My husband Walt contacted the town manager about the park, and she did a wonderful job sending somebody out right away to bring the mulch up to the safety level on all the playground equipment. He sent me today to ask if there's been any check on the equipment and them coming back and replacing parts that are rusted out.
Yes, we have made contact with the manufacturer, and we're waiting for him to come to the area, which we anticipate soon, to assess the equipment, to see what they're gonna be able to do to repair those areas. But we have take notes, we took pictures and sent to the manufacturer, and we took notes as far as what we've noticed with the equipment, as far as where the welding at the seams, where the powder coating has come off. So all that has been relayed to them and documented, and we're just waiting for him to come down for the site visit to determine what they will do, and then determine what we will need to do from there.
Alice Wall will be thrilled to hear that. Thank you very much. And I had an issue, and I talked to the town manager, and I'm very happy. I think she's doing a great job, and we're glad she's here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So on the, I'm just thinking budget. Do we have anything in the budget for equipment at the park?
We do.
Okay. Okay. All right, so then what we're going to do is go around and do we have an attorney's report?
My daughter turned 16 on Sunday.
Oh, my goodness.
I say that simply because I think she was 1 when I first got appointed here. Thank you guys for having me for 15 years. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
And Ms. Pluto? Oh, wait, no, I have to go next. So, from the mayor's report, it's been a very busy month as far as the budget. I think the staff has done a fantastic job with the budget. It has been very painless as a board going through that. I know we're not quite done yet, but definitely appreciate all of the work that's gone into that, as well as Earth Day and just the beautification of the town. I think that this is the first time I remember such an effort going into making sure cohesively we look good as a town and that things are being taken care of. So I greatly appreciate that. I was invited to meet with Senator Lazara. He has a meeting coming up in May with some local officials. So I will be doing that, and I will touch base with the board members on different topics about bringing up there. Just getting ready for the summer season as well. It's already busy. We're already busy, so appreciate that too. That's my report. I'll start with Ms. Butler.
All right, the Topsail Turtle Project held their first series of Turtle Talks here yesterday. Turtle Talks are going to be held every Tuesday from 9 to 9:45. It seemed to go very well. There were 17 people in attendance, and they are very appreciative of the town. Speaking of turtles, we've had 3 dead turtles on the beach within the last just under 2 weeks. I've gone out and I've taken all the data for the state, but I have reported to the state that these turtles were in no way harmed by our contractors. The contractors are working really well. When they see something, they report it, and work stops and we get out there as quickly as possible. But they are in no way have they done anything to cause any of this. The budget it has been quite a process, but and I have lost sleep over it, felt sick to my stomach over it, because it's just other people's money. But the town has a lot of needs and a lot of things that we need to do for everyone. I hate that people are gonna be spending more money on their taxes in this bad economical time. But the town really has a lot of needs, and there's a balancing act, and the town staff has been outstanding. Alice talked about a living shoreline, and I actually went down to Morris Landing, where I knew that is it the CRC? The Coastal Fed put one in. So I went down and looked at that and looked at all their information on it. That's a very interesting process, and I do think that that would be a benefit for our town park. And so, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission had their meeting earlier this week. It was delayed from a normal April meeting because of the CRC meeting, and there was a coastal ocean plastics workshop Friday afternoon that many of us attended, and it was very enlightening about the issues, and this dovetails in with the Beach Clean initiative that the Shoreline Protection Commission is fostering for all of Topsail Island in terms of responsible use of non-recyclable items. And the effort is all about protecting the environment. So look for more from the Shoreline Protection Commission on this Beach Clean initiative. I know that I've been really pleased to see on the town electronic signboard, most of the time it says, you know, it's got our logo, Beach Clean, leave no trace, that sort of thing. So we are the first town on the island that has really promoted this to the public in a very strong way. So it's been a good use of our money from the county to promote tourism and environmental protection here on the island. The other thing I wanted just to kind of relay to the group that has persisted here through our fairly long meeting today was how much time we spent talking with the coastal engineer and working out those details. I don't think many people realize that it's not just simply the dump truck backing up to the offload area and the sand going on the beach. There's a lot of consideration that the board and now the BISAC committee has to put in to make all this stuff happen. But I did want to apologize for the length of time it took to work through those issues with Fran Way, our FEMA engineer for these projects. That's my report, Mayor.
Alderman Swanton?
I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out to the Beach Clean. This relates to that. There was quite a bit of people. I was really surprised. We didn't get much stuff, which is really great. But the cigarette butts were the most expensive thing, you know. I think I got 26, another guy got 56.
You got flip-flops?
And I got flip-flops and a bunch of wood, you know. It was good. It was a good point. We brought everybody together, especially our staff. Most of our staff showed up there,
And our
which was
firemen.
really good. Yeah. And so, but on this the beach jam, I think it's going to be something really spectacular for the town. Yeah, it's running a lot of money to get it going, but from what we understand from the people that do this, that these bands that he's bringing here, one of the bands is actually his, they have followers that follow them all over the state. And so we'll be selling a lot of tickets. We're going to be doing it online type of thing where you buy your ticket. There is a lot of logistics to come up with, porta potties, everything else, police, everything. But we'll get there. And I think it'll be a real good thing for everybody.
Okay, thank you, sir. Alderman Grant?
Just thank everybody that stuck through the meeting, attended 2 of the Onslow County Commissioners meetings, and I would praise our manager who has a very good relationship with them now. I think
like that. Our relationship with the county has very much improved. They're struggling with their budgets as well. They've got a lot of money that they've got to spend. They've got issues with their fire departments and a huge issue with the schools. And then finally, the flip-flops, Bob said, are $14.95. If you use a credit card, was it $12 cash that you'll take? So anyway, thank you.
The next, I need a motion to close session to consider, it's a statute, and it's statute 43, 381, 6. Is that good, Brian? Want to add to that? Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.